Sekeres and Price for Friday, November 8th, 2024, coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the iconic, historic Wall Center, downtown Vancouver, where you turn game night into a game weekend. Book your stay at the Wall. Enjoy an exclusive Sekeres and Price rate, 604-331-1000. Some blackout date supply based on availability. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price. Four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson hitting switches, conducting things. Big show planned for you. And we'll start with our Surrey Mitsubishi poll question, pointing forward to the weekend showdown against the Edmonton Oilers, then get back to what happened last night in Los Angeles. Are the Oilers overrated? Yes or no? You can vote at the Sekeres and Price X and YouTube channels. I think so. And look, I understand they have star power galore. McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman off his career year, Bouchard. So tremendous group of forwards. Terrific run to Game 7 of the Cup final last year and a hell of a comeback in the Cup final. Down 3 buzz. People forget, they were down 3-0 in that series.
Yeah.
But when I looked, and I'm not surprised they were the betting favorite by Bet365 before the season started. In fact, they're the co-favorite right now with the Florida Panthers. That didn't surprise me either. I guess what surprised me was just how large the consensus was when you looked at hockey media about who will win the Cup this year. So many people picking the Edmonton Oilers.
You're right.
It was.
There's a context where the answer is yes.
And that's my context.
They have a high ceiling. So in some ways, they are not overrated because they've got 2 of the top 5 players on the planet on their team. But you're right. The consensus was a little much.
Well, and especially just how dismissive people were of other teams around the league. Like, I saw very few people picking Carolina, Dallas. They're terrific teams.
Yeah. Heck, even in the Pacific, though, the erasure of the Canucks in Vegas was pretty marked.
For sure.
I mean, it was
people didn't want to pick Florida because it's hard to run it back, let alone 3 straight years in the Cup final. Yeah. Winnipeg has entered the chat now. But look, you look at the Edmonton Oilers here today. I think they still have goal prevention issues.
They do.
I think they're still a thin team with not a ton of cap space or assets to fix it, particularly after losing Holloway and Broberg. Their penalty kill is abhorrent. So, damn good team, don't get me wrong. But overrated, I'm voting yes.
The Stanley Cup was a microcosm of what they are. They are a streaky team. So you do have to be a little bit careful by judging them by what you see right now. They had a terribly slow start last year as well. Then had an 8-game winning streak and a 16-game winning streak.
Well, but that's the other thing. We had a lot of listeners saying to us at the outset of the season, I think the Canucks will win the division because Edmonton always seems to find a way to have a spell during the year where they play well below their standard, and we've seen it here again.
And it's usually the beginning. So, are they going to rip off another 12-game winning streak or something like that? They very well might. They very well might. But that's a difficult team to pin down as truly dominant if they're also capable of losing 10 of 11. It's...
Yeah, well, look, put it this way. Last year around this time when they were really struggling, I had no doubt that they would come back and be a playoff team. As it stands right here, I have no doubt they will be better than where they stand right now, because right now they're on the outside of the playoffs looking in.
With a losing record. No, but thinking that they were going to bounce back into the playoffs, yeah, I think that was – nobody had them penned in at that moment to go to the last game of the season, Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. I don't think anybody had that on their bingo cards when they were 5-12-1 or whatever they were.
They're 6-7-1 right now, 13 points. They're 2 out of a playoff spot with 2 teams to jump. And they are 4 behind the Vancouver Canucks, having played 2 additional games for third in the Pacific.
Canucks win their games in hand. They could be an 8-point cushion here. And, of course, a head-to-head even makes that math more in the Canucks' favor if they win tomorrow night.
Last chance to take advantage on specials on 2024 models at Surrey Mitsubishi. When you trade in any vehicle for a new 2024, Surrey Mitsubishi going to give you $3,000 above market value for your trade. Take advantage of rates as low as 1.9%. Get an extended warranty on 2024 PHEVs. It's the vehicles that Blake and I are driving right now. No charge plus $1,000 credit towards winter tires. Only while inventory lasts and only at Surrey Mitsubishi. Surrey Mitsubishi, 13820 104th Avenue in Surrey, or online at surreymitsubishi.ca. We'll get to our top story here by Yellow Dog, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. 3 in a row for the Canucks, 6 straight on the road. They beat the Los Angeles Kings 4-2 at the Crypto.com Arena. 7-2-3 on the season, a .708 winning percentage, which is 7th right now overall in the NHL.
Only the Winnipeg Jets have lost fewer games in regulation time than the Vancouver Canucks. So a marvelous correction to a 1-1-3 start, I believe. It is, and the best thing, we sort of will repeat ourselves from the last couple of days. The best part about where they are right now is it's not like they're hitting on all cylinders. Like, there is still room to get better. And even the post-game remarks from players and coaches after all these wins is, yeah, it's good. It's good, but, X, Y, Z, here's where we still need to be better. Here's where we still want to be better. Last year was a bit dangerous in that regard, right? Last year, the Canucks were blowing everybody out because their shooting percentage was so damn high that it made it look like the Canucks were just a wagon, that the game came easy to them. And eventually, those chickens came home to roost. They're doing it differently this year, yes. And it's probably the healthier way to be a hot team.
Yeah, because the process is improving.
And you still stay on process rather than just thinking, we just take to the ice, we score 6 goals, and we win. It's fabulous. But that's what they did for 3 weeks.
So we have to talk about Brock Besser and Tanner Jeannot here. And we're told from our NHL insider friends that the hearing is going to take place later this afternoon for Tanner Jeannot. It's a phone hearing, which means it will be a suspension of 5 games or less. But this, for me, this is a middle fastball for the Department of Player Safety. It was a targeted hit to the head. It was blindside on a vulnerable player. It was late even, and it caused an injury with Besser leaving the game. It's the reason why you have a Department of Player Safety. It's like this. And Jeannot is not a repeat offender, but I would sure hope that George Parros and company take into account that Besser missed the rest of the game, went slowly to the room. I mean, with any hit like that, you have to worry or wonder about a concussion, which would mean a minimum of 5 days and 2 games missed from Besser. He did get the 5-minute penalty and an ejection. Sometimes they take that into account when administering justice.
And an early one, too, so he's effectively served 1 game already.
Well, okay, but put it this way. I think right now you have to operate like Besser's going to miss at least 2 games. So I would think that the suspension should be a minimum 2 games and perhaps as much as 5. But it's got to be more than 1. Put it that way. I think giving him time served for this game plus one additional game is too light. Absolute minimum 2. And like for my money, again, it ticks every single box of what you don't want to see in a hit. 5 would be more than fair.
And it's going to be merely the thirst for justice for Canucks fans and anything else. They don't face the Kings anytime soon, so it's not like the suspension keeps them out of head-to-head that's coming up on the schedule in any way, shape, or form. But it does mean that Besser is gone. Canucks were able to find offense without him the rest of this game. Do you try to replace it with Jonathan Lekramaki?
Yeah, well, and I've seen the I've seen the story that David Quadrelli and our friends at Canucks Army have done. And of course, Darren Dreger earlier in the week told us it's a matter of when, not if, that Jonathan Lekramacky is going to get called up.
And it's kind of the perfect instance because there's a spot there and it's finite. Like Besser's, I mean, we're playing doctor from afar, but it was a glancing blow. It wasn't perfectly perpendicular. So I'm going to guess it's if he's concussed, it's not a devastating concussion, but you never know.
Never know. But sometimes innocuous hits create really, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But if it's 2 or 3 games, as you were saying that he's gone for, that's sort of nice. Here, kid, you're going to come up. We're going to put you in the exact same spot, a spot to succeed, and then you're going to go back down.
I hear your mouth, but it's a little early for me. I know he's had some success shooting the puck and scoring some goals, and that's fantastic, but that's his bread and butter, right? Like, that's not the stuff that he needs to quote-unquote learn at the AHL level. It's 5 goals in 7 games. Extraordinary. It's also a -8. They have been a pretty dreadful defensive team, Abbotsford. And then, for me, the bigger part of the equation, Blake, is Dakota Joshua.
Mm-hmm.
And if Dakota Joshua is ready to come back for the game tomorrow, well, and Besser has to miss it, then you've got a replacement there, and it's just about shuffling the forward.
And there's some reporting there that it is not a setback for Dakota Joshua.
Good.
That
it's just overly cautious.
And it's just apparently the plan. So that's what they had said earlier in the week, that there is a plan. There's a plan. Well, okay. It's weird that you took 3 days off, but okay.
Well, also weird that 2 weeks ago, Tocchet said, oh, yeah, all he has to do now is just field the game a little, get some body contact in practice. And the other thing is like, who would you take out here?
For what? Oh, for if you put 2 of them in, you mean? If you put both Joshua and Lekramacky?
Yeah. Well, you may go to Ratu, but you need centerman, and that would move Suter back to a center position.
Daniel Sprong is fine, but he's not lighting the lamp here, so maybe you take him out.
No,
or you just elevate Sprong. That's the other option.
Right.
Is that Sprong becomes Besser?
Well, absolutely. In fact, as much as I'm curious about Lekramacky, as much as his goal totals and shot totals may merit a cup of coffee, a look-see, here, kid, here's what the NHL is. And sometimes teams do that. The Gillis era used to talk about that. Not that they have not that they had a ton of prospects, but it's good for players to come on up and just see what the NHL routine is like. Be in an NHL practice, all of those things.
But you also brought in Sprong for this very reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And frankly, what I really like about that is, as we know, Sprong's a goal scorer and right shot and all those things, and would be he's Brock Besser light to a degree. But that also allows you to start Dakota Joshua down lineup, get his feet wet.
Yep. If all that plays in, if Joshua is ready, sure, yeah, I can.
Right, because I don't think you're bringing Lekramacky up to scratch him. So
no.
And if Dakota Joshua is ready to go, well, then Dakota Joshua plays in front of Jonathan Lekramacky.
Yes, in a different.
You're not going to delay Dakota Joshua's return to accommodate a kid who's got 13 North American pro games.
No, it wouldn't be about that. It would be more about spot in the lineup, and we don't want to put Sprong there. He's not ready. He doesn't have the defensive attributes. So but not that the kid will either. But
but
I'm fine with it.
We don't know yet. If it was if Besser has to miss a lot of time, then I think it's a different set of circumstances.
But I think you're trying Sprong. He's in the lineup. You don't have to do anything. You're not disrupting anybody's development. That's probably the easiest go-to. Is you just give Daniel Sprong a go here, and you say, "This is you wanted more time. You wanted to prove your worth. Here you go. Here's a few games where you get prime time here. You get to play with JT Miller. Show us what you got, Daniel Sprong." So,
what are our friends in neighborhood?
I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
The Wild Extra Pale Ale has been released by Neighborhood in collaboration with New Country Radio there in the Okanagan. Crisp, hoppy, crushable as well. It's a brew for all Wranglers, perfect to share with all your wild amigos. Yeehaw, go get yourself some Wild Wild Extra Pale Ale.
Jake DeBrusk has goals in 3 consecutive games. The Canucks sweep this California trip, and DeBrusk gets markers in each to open his Canucks account and take the heat off as they come home, because that's certainly something we had been tracking. When will the new big free agent signing score goals and contribute more offensively? Box ticked. Connor Garland, Quinn Hughes, JT Miller get the other goals last night. 3 unassisted goals. That's a little odd.
I wondered when I looked at the box, what's the record for most unassisted goals in a game?
Yeah. And, of course, Miller's empty net goal. And this after, Tocchet, huh? It's one thing to be good, another thing to be lucky. Tocchet practices empty net goals on Wednesday with the players shooting from their own end. And if they missed, they have to skate a lap. And sure enough, he gets the empty net scenario. And exactly that sort of situation for JT Miller to convert. He had explained that, that's a more difficult situation than people think. When people are bearing down on you to be able to shoot accurately down at the...
And did you notice what happened after that goal goes in? So it's 4-2. So now you can sort of go for the second empty netter with impunity. Tyler Miles had two or three opportunities where he spun and fired lasers that dented the end boards at the other end because you had the 2-goal lead and they had just practiced.
That'll be 2 laps, Tyler.
Yeah, exactly.
Garland winds up playing a career-high 22 minutes and 43 seconds because Besser leaves the game so early. You're down a winger, down a right winger. Played 8 minutes and 9 seconds in the first period where he generates 5 scoring chances, or his line does, to 0 against. He scores. We asked yesterday on the Mitsubishi poll question, is he a star player or a role player? Well, he keeps pushing closer towards star. This is also now the 4th longest road winning streak in club history at 6 games. They have a 7-gamer, which was a couple years ago during the Bruce There It Is phenomenon. They have an 8-gamer. And then they have a club record 9-game road winning streak during their virtuoso 2010-2011 season. They had a built-in advantage that year because they were doing sleep and fatigue management when other teams weren't, and offered the best road record in the history of the club, traveling from one of the most difficult NHL outposts. Usually it's Edmonton and Vancouver traveling the most miles each and every year. And the Canucks were able to fashion an extraordinary record on the road that year. The next 4 home games, or road games, so the 4 games that could potentially set the new record, and this is not for a couple of weeks here because they start a 6-game homestand at Rogers Arena tomorrow. At Ottawa, Boston, Pittsburgh, Buffalo. Trips to Boston are never fun. Sydney and the Pen, sure, at home ice, but not exactly a murderer's row. And we'll see where those records are when the Canucks get there. But, the Senators are below 500. Pittsburgh is way below 500.
There's a few stub toes.
Buffalo has won 2 in a row, but still below 500 as well. And, Boston's no great shakes either right now. They're 500.
Yeah.
Again, we'll see where they're at in a couple of weeks. And they're already at the point with 7 road games in the books. You mentioned this yesterday. 34 road games to go. If you just went 500 on the road from here, you'd have an exceptional road record.
Yeah, that's
a road record worthy of a division champion, a number 1 or number 2 seed in the
assuming you are assuming there that they've brought this good play to home and you've established a home record that is normative as well.
I would have to think there's something approximating a regular home record. I guess it's happened in the NHL. It's happened in other sports as well, where a team goes out and forges this great record on the road and is very middling or poor at home.
Last year, the Leafs
But I would have to think some home victories are coming here as soon as this 6-game.
Last year, the Leafs were 24, 11, and 6 on the road. Very nice road record. They were only 22, 15, and 4 at home.
Yeah, but 22, 15, and 4 with where the Canucks are now in terms of that would still be a damn good season.
But at home, you want better than that.
Well,
7
sure.
games above 500, you want better than that if you're going to be a first-place team. And I think they do still want to try to win the division, don't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Last year at home, 27, 9, and 5.
Mm-hmm.
18 games above 500. You replicate that home record with the start that you've had on the road, boy, you are loving life. So, if you're a season ticket holder, you should be rubbing your hands together because momentum should start coming the Canucks' way, you'd think, at home.
Let's hear from Coach Tocchet on, getting wins on the road.
We were a good road team last year, so we're comfortable playing. And you got to be comfortable playing a 2-1 hockey game, or whatever. That's all the good teams that, you got to be able to lock it down and not be push the envelope. So, Kings made a run at the end, but, getting them to go helped us.
They scored at the end, but it didn't seem like they were necessarily overwhelming the Canucks at the end.
No, it turned into a, not dead yet. Got to make the 3-footer.
Yeah, but they did. It was a bend, don't break. And again, I didn't feel like they were parking the bus and withstanding the barrage. They got one for sure.
Yep.
But the Canucks still were able to keep them at bay at arm's length, and that was a professional win.
I mean, it was amongst their best defensive performances of the season,
Yes.
if not their best game. When you talk about team defense and buttoning it down, and Tocchet has praised them rightfully for being a more connected group. You remember when he was talking earlier in the season, they were disconnected. One guy doing a different thing, and that sets everybody off. They cut down on the odd man rushes, which had been an issue earlier in the season. And then when all else fails, there's Kevin Lankinen, who was not tested as he has been earlier in the season, and remains extraordinary with a league-leading goals against average and a 7-0-2 record. He has points in every single game that he started. So let's hear from Coach here about the team, how the team is rounding into form, and then we'll get into the 40 and 43, who we talk about just about every day.
Yeah, I just think we're getting to our game. Obviously the odd man rushes are getting less and less. I think that's the key. Just a more connected group. You got to remember we've got 10 or 11 different guys, or 9. I don't know the exact number. A couple guys are injured. I mean, there's a lot of different moving parts, and we're hanging in there. So I'm really proud of the guys. I mean, the teams you're playing are NHL team. They're hard. So we're trying to gel, and I don't know, game 12 or 13. So we're trying to gel.
They're also getting their odd man rushes.
Yep.
I'm starting to, I haven't been counting, but anecdotally, not only are they limiting those against, but they are doing what he set out to do. They're starting to create some.
Yep. And, we thought this would take some time. Mm-hmm. You're trying to forge a whole other layer, a whole other element to your game that really was MIA last year in terms of generating off the rush. So 12 games in, so far so good. Mm-hmm. Now on Paterson, and I thought Elias was very good again last night. And frankly, this is 3 in a row where I think Elias has been a whole lot better than what we saw early in the season. If we're going to talk about the team and process, then I think it's only fair that we talk about Elias within those confines as well. Yes, of course he needs a bottom line. Daniel Wagner last night. I can understand being frustrated by the lack of points, but Paterson had a strong game, was mostly matched up against the Kopitar line and completely shut them down. We were talking about Kopitar and how well he's been going. Kings had just one shot on goal, and Paterson was up against Kopitar at even strength. I know you're going to tell me bottom line. Yep, and I don't disagree.
I'm going to go,
but he's getting there.
I'm going to go one step further than that. Yeah, I would give him the lack of bottom line if I felt like he was terribly dangerous offensively and just was snake bit.
And he was not terribly dangerous last night.
Right. So at that point, you're just talking about him playing good defensively. It is worth something. It's not worth 11.6.
Of course not.
So that's going to be the next step, is that in games like this, it's okay if he comes away with 0 points, but I want him to ring a shot off the post. I want him to be denied by great goaltending, something, and that's not happening either.
Okay. I'll say this to you. Mike, make a note. He'll have 12 points in the next 8 games.
Whoa! 12 in the next 8.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just drop that marker, that yard marker, right now. If he gets 12 points in the next 8 games, absolved.
Then there's 43, and his brilliance continues.
We might have to save an entire segment for him just on an ongoing.
We pretty much do every
basis.
day. I mean, like I would have lauded him and earlier in this segment, but we just did it a couple of days ago. We're talking about him being the best player
on today's
in
gushing about Hughes.
Exactly. We should sponsor it. So he scores the goal, and dear God, I mean, the stick handling there. Mm-hmm. And let's face it, a bit of a lucky goal, right? Like, good on him for getting the puck on net from distance. More often than not, NHL goaltenders are going to make that save. Pretty good screen there as well. But I think we're getting to the point here, Blake, of what we talked about a couple of days ago. More performances like this, and I think you're going to have the national media and NHL fans writ large talking about Quinn Hughes and not Cale Makar as the best defenseman in the league.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think will grow in its volume, if with more games like this, is Quinn Hughes for Hart and his candidacy for league MVP. And I say that because the thing that's transpiring this year that's a little different than last year is the stark contrast with the Canucks between Hughes being on the ice and Hughes being on the bench. This is something we used to often say about Connor McDavid when the Oilers weren't quite as talented as they are now. And this is something that a lot of people factored in when they were all those years voting for Connor McDavid as the Hart Trophy winner. And that is Hughes. With Hughes on the ice this year, the Canucks are outscoring opponents 16-4. 16-4. That's 80% of the goals. Without him, they're getting outscored 13-9. The Dmitry Filipovich tweet here. Even strength for Hughes this year. Shots, 143-83 in the Canucks' favor. 60 more shots than your opponents through 12 games.
Pretty big advantage.
It's 5 a game, right?
Yeah.
High danger chances. With Hughes on the ice, 63-29 Canucks, more than doubling them up. And then goals, this is even strength goals. The 16-4 includes the power play goals and the special team goals. It's 14-3. The Jay Fresh tweet here is instructive. His player card. A 99% WAR. That's maxing out, man.
Yeah.
The defensive metrics are up. Took his first time visiting the penalty box last night. That's up. The shooting's up. We've talked about how he's continuously worked on his shot.
You know what? He
wants to get to.
You know what category is missing from the Jay Fresh card there that I saw on display last night, and it's self-perpetuating. Fear per 60, and it is very high for Quinn Hughes. You know that feeling you have as a Vancouver Canuck fan when Connor McDavid is buzzing and that he comes over the board and gets the puck on his stick, and you as a Canuck fan go, "Oh crap!"
Yep.
Now, what we saw last night on that goal was the oh crap of the LA Kings. Was them on their heels going, I don't know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
And the more your legend grows, the more you back up your legend with the performance that Quinn Hughes is, the more that happens. Where all of a sudden, the guy that you should not be giving any space to, you have to give space to because you don't know what he's going to do. And, just to have that kind of a player on your team as a Canuck fan, you should feel pretty lucky because there's 5-8 guys in the league that can do that have the fear per 60 that a guy like Quinn Hughes does.
Yep. Tomorrow against the Oilers at Rogers Arena to begin a 6-game homestand, their first matchup of the season after the Canucks swept all 4 regular season meetings last year and then bowed out to the Oilers in 7 games in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Alas, they were without Brock Besser in Game 7. You remember the blood clotting issues. They may have to be without Brock Besser again tomorrow. The Vincent Desharnais defection has happened since then. Of course, Desharnais now a Vancouver Canuck, then an Edmonton Oiler. Struggled again last night, but I suspect he'll play tomorrow. You come with Juleson tomorrow? You come with...
No, I think there's enough shown by Desharnais that I'm back to Desharnais.
Wasn't the best night for Brandstrom and Desharnais, but hey. And of course, when last we saw these two teams, the Canucks were in the midst of a furious comeback. They were down 3-0 in that game. Philip Hronek scored to make it 3-2 with 4.5 minutes to play, and then JT Miller had 2 chances from the high slot in the dying seconds before the Oilers were able to clear the puck and earn a hard-fought 7-game victory. The rivalry is back on. These are 2 of the better teams in the National Hockey League, even if the Oilers are struggling right now. The star power here is immense. We're just coming off the first big divisional showdown, and really, that was the appetizer for this game tomorrow. Very much looking forward to it.
The thing to be careful is the Oilers need this one more than the Canucks do. The Oilers have dropped 2 in a row. The sight of this crest, I'm sure the head coach is excited about this here because he wants something to catch his players' attention.
All right.
And the Canucks logo will do that they harken back to the
memories. They might be. This might be the perfect opponent for him.
That's what I'm saying
Tomorrow. Yes,
it's a smelling salt.
Absolutely. Menu by Greta, fantastic spot to catch all the games home and away. Your steps from the stadium, minutes from the arena, pregame, postgame. The street food menu is fantastic. Love the smash burger there. The games at the arcade, very popular. Weekly drink specials. Greta, the place to be. 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. We'll talk to J-Pat here. His takeaways from everything last night point forward to the Oilers game. Sam Adekugbe, the Canadian international and Whitecaps defender, hours away from the biggest game in the history of the MLS franchise. They're in LAFC, a deciding Game 3 to see if they can move on in the MLS playoffs and face their chief rival, Seattle Sounders, in the next round. Should be a fantastic match tonight. Big hockey game tomorrow. CFL playoffs to set the Grey Cup matchup for here in Vancouver next week. Fantastic time in the world of sports. Looking forward to the weekend. Time now for our Bet365 Bets of the Day, the segment brought to you by Bet365, proud partner Sekeres and Price, and the aforementioned CFL Divisional Finals, Blake, and I'm going to take a big swing here. I told our buddy Faran Lalji earlier in the week, I think Saskatchewan and Montreal certainly want the Riders here because they always make Grey Cup more fun. So, Alouettes are minus 125 to win on the money line. Riders are plus 180. I'm going to parlay them both to win. Pays 4-1.
I've talked to you before about how I think Bet365 doesn't drill down on their MLS stuff too much. That there's deals to be had. Shh, don't tell anybody. Ryan Gauld is an anytime goal scorer. What do you think that would be? Given that Olivier Giroux, who has yet to score an MLS goal, is at plus 125. Ryan Gauld, who leads all goal scorers in the playoffs, anytime goal scorer, plus 300. Plus 300.
Mm-hmm. Open an account with Bet365 today. Well, there's not a lot of goals in soccer, and yeah.
But if Giroux's plus 125.
Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, new code there, when opening that account. Jeff Paterson coming up next.
I'll be honest, I don't get to many games anymore, whether it be at the arena or the stadium. Ticket availability cost, it's a bit of an issue these days. So I prefer to go where there's atmosphere and I know I can get in. Greta Bar YVR. Soak up all the atmosphere with your fellow fans and enjoy a great night with a great street food menu. I prefer the poutine. Weekly drink specials as well at Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova. And we'll be having our viewing parties there all season long as well. Your pregame, your postgame, it's at Greta Bar YVR, 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin.
Here's some price from the historic Wall Center. And speaking of historic, White Spot in British Columbia.
Just omnipresent, I think, since the province opened its doors. And with that, there's the expectation.
I think they fed George Vancouver
They may
himself.
have. They may have. The opening one, don't quote us on that, but it's possible. And the reason why White Spot works is they know what you want. And in this time of year, you want comfort. You want things that make you feel good. It's chilly. It's wet outside. The comfort menu from the culinary team at the White Spot hits every note just perfect. Braised beef burger, the pot roast, the mini Yorkies, chicken pot pie. Are you kidding me? It's Sunday night, every night. At White Spot, visit your local White Spot today.
Jeff Paterson is the host of RinkWide Vancouver, as well as our Canucks reporter. He joins us now. Jeff, big takeaway from a big victory last night over the Kings.
Yeah, I think that was the game that we've been waiting for from the Vancouver Canucks. It took them 12 games to get there, but a good opponent, tail end of a road trip, star power, star players rose above. I mean, Quinn Hughes is just at such an extraordinary level and has kept it there. But, you know, look at the goal scorers for the Vancouver Canucks. It's Garland, it's Hughes, it's Jake DeBrusk, and it's JT Miller into an empty net. Those are the guys that you would expect to be all over the score sheet on a lot of nights for the Vancouver Canucks. It hasn't all come together. I like the offense. And defensively, as good as Hughes and Hronek were, I thought best performance of the season. And again, it took longer than expected, but Carson Soucy and Tyler Myers as a secondary pairing held up their end of the bargain. And then even a little lower, Vinny Desharnais turns the puck over on what leads to the Byfield goal to open the scoring. Canucks have given up the first goal in 6 straight. Big deal. They just roar back, and they're starting to play the way I think that they thought and that a lot of us thought that they could and would play on a lot of nights this season.
A skilled play goal for Jake DeBrusk to get his 3rd in a row. And we were told he's a streaky goal scorer, boys. Is he looking like one right now, isn't he?
Yeah, are we calling him the Golden Boy? Because all 3 of his goals have come in the Golden State. Now, he's got to find somewhere other than California to be productive, and there are a lot of locales around the National Hockey League. So let's hope that he's warming up here and that whatever pressure he was feeling, having gone 9 without scoring, I think for me, like the goal, the patience, the poise, and ultimately the finish, terrific. I like 5 shots on goal from Jake DeBrusk. This is a guy, if you're going to score, you've got to get pucks on the net and to the net, and he hadn't been doing an awful lot of that. So we've seen him score in different ways. The big shot in San Jose, net front, and the deflection in Anaheim, and there last night, the hands that looked like a guy that could be a 25 to 30 goal scorer. And it is funny how 3 in a row can really change the narrative around a guy. He's got 3 goals in 12 games, which puts him on a 20-goal pace, which I think is at the low end of the acceptable range over the course of a season. But it's feeling a whole lot better, and I'm sure it does for him, rather than 0 for 9, wondering when that first one was going to come. All of a sudden, you're right, we're seeing the streak go the other direction, and we'll see if he can carry that on when the team gets home here and starts playing all these games at Rogers Arena.
Yeah, 5 of just 23 shots for the Canucks, so a high percentage of them. And in fact, you put him and Sherwood together, it's more than the third of the total shots they have.
And that's continuing to trend, Jeff. What do you think of this, choosiness of Canucks shooting? Do you think this is actually by design? And there's a case to be made that in sports that there's, and I've heard this from Vandy Sartini in soccer too, take good shots, don't take bad shots. And they aren't the Carolina Hurricanes who shoot from everywhere. Do you think this will continue all season long, that the shot totals might not be too gaudy, but they'll still score their requisite amount of goals?
I think they found out the hard way that you can't really have a ton of success in the playoffs. What did they have, 15 and 17 shots in the final 2 games against the Edmonton Oilers, and people were screaming from the mountaintops, shoot the puck. Quinn is shooting it at an outrageous rate. Nobody else on the team is anywhere close to that. So I do wonder if he's taking some of the shots away from others, and obviously it's going to be an ongoing story with Elias Pettersson to see him and his shot rates, and can he get those moving in the right direction. But Yeah, there are factors, right? Like the LA Kings came into the night the third stingiest team in the NHL in terms of the shots given up. I think only Colorado and Carolina allowed fewer on a nightly basis. So the Canucks were seeing a stingy team that doesn't give up an awful lot. So I think in some ways the game kind of played out the way that I anticipated and expected on that front. But I hear what you're saying, quality over quantity, but I don't think it's crazy talk to think that you can have both on some nights as well.
Well, and the other thing we should mention about when we talk shots from yesterday's game, 21 attempts missed, 20 blocks. So it was 64 shot attempts, which is a pretty good total for any given game. And yes, certainly better than some of the totals that we saw last year in the playoff series against Edmonton.
I think the power play, guys, is an area too. I know it scored in the first period, the Garland goal, but it took them a while to get going there and still didn't generate an awful lot. That's an area that I want to see shot volume up, and ultimately one of these nights I want to see the power play win them a hockey game. They haven't needed it because they've been spreading the offense around. Did score a power play goal in Anaheim. They scored one. So they've scored in back-to-back games. These are baby steps for the power play. But I do think that's one area that they can bump the shot totals up, and hopefully that's an area that can lead to a little more offense along the way as well.
Was that their best defensive game of the year?
Yeah, I think so. Again, you only play the team that's on the schedule in front of you, so they don't have to apologize for beating the Blackhawks and the Flyers and the Sharks and the Ducks. Last night it was the Kings, and this is honestly Kopitar 15 points coming into the night. He was quiet, and I think a lot of that was the work that the Canucks did. And for all the angst in the market, Elias Pettersson had a really solid defensive game. Now he's being paid to produce at both ends, and so it's sort of a one-handed clap for Elias Pettersson. That the defensive game, that's great. But you want to see something at the other end of the ice still, waiting for the breakout game, just one shot on goal for Petey. But the Kings have some weapons. They aren't as constrictive. They aren't all about that 1-3-1 that choked the life out of the Canucks last year. They took 3 of 4. And in fact, the one game the Canucks beat them was in overtime. So LA got a point in all 4 of the games last year head-to-head, had won 5 of 6 against the Canucks going back a couple of seasons. So on a lot of levels, I just think I liked what the Canucks did, overcame a sluggish start, or at least giving up the early goal. And then once they got the lead, they didn't try to sit back. They pushed, they extended it. I mean, my goodness, I'm just going to sit here and put my feet up and watch Quinn Hughes walk that blue line on his goal. Akil Thomas, feel for the guy. Like, what more can he do? He tried to defend it, and he just looks foolish. And he's not going to be alone by the end of the season. There's going to be lots of guys there. So I know you asked me about defense, but with Quinn, so much of his defensive game is spending time up ice. And it was another night where the underlyings are just so off the charts good that you just feel when he's out there, the Canucks aren't in danger. They're not in peril. And he took a first penalty of the season. And I know they would have loved to have had him out there for a couple extra minutes late in the game, protecting the lead. But, kind of nice to see him stand up for himself as well. There.
Completely. Exactly. If you're going to take a penalty, I would much rather that than a hooking penalty. Coincidental minors where you're sticking up for yourself, by all means, Quinn. Like that's a good standard to sort of set forth.
Pretty good trade, right? Like Brant Clark's not at Quinn Hughes' level, but he means a lot to the LA Kings. He's got 12 points. And it was just funny the way that whole thing unfolded off the rush. And before you know it, glove punches are being fired both ways. So, not really sure. I didn't expect those two to be combatants in this hockey game. But again, I just think it speaks to it's a rivalry. There's certainly some feeling in the game. We know that from what happened in the first period, obviously. But yeah, I like a little bite and a little pushback from the captain on top of everything else that he does so well right now.
I was going to ask you, Jeff, you covered 3 MVP seasons with the Canucks, Hank, Danny, and Marcus, not to mention Roberto Luongo's 06-07 masterpiece where he single-handedly drags them to the division championship. Is this the best, or was last year the best individual season you've seen from a Vancouver Canucks player in 20-plus years of covering the team?
His impact on the game every shift out feels like something that I've not witnessed. Daniel and Henrik, which wasn't fair to them, but they were lumped as a package deal, although we remember that 30-game stretch when Daniel broke his foot and Henrik took off and was like, see, I can do this on my own. We're not the same guy. But they're always looked at as the twins, right? And so it is sort of hard to separate their bodies of work, and one relied on the other, and they had superpowers that nobody else in the National Hockey League had. when Ryan Kessler went on those runs where he would take over games, you think of the National Playoff Series in 2011, he left no doubt from shift to shift and game to game that he was the best player in that series, but that was a relatively short series. We're 12 games in. There's still 70 to go. Quinn's going to have the odd off night, but there's going to be so many more incredible nights than there are anything that even approaches normal. So, just the underlying numbers every night. And now, whether you look at the road trip, and I tweeted out this morning, his impact on the road trip, 5-on-5, the Canucks outscored the Kings 5-0. The high dangers were 15-1. Like, I don't care if it's the Sharks and the Ducks. Like, this guy plays 25 to 30 minutes a night. He's out there all the time. The 3 California opponents generated 1 high danger chance against Quinn Hughes in 180 minutes of hockey. Well, I guess it's not all 180 because of the special teams, but still, like, the point is made. Like, he's at another level right now, and it's so much fun to watch. It must be impossible to play against, as Akil Thomas found out the hard way. And, like, the setup for the DeBrusk goal, I mean, great vision there to get that pass through some traffic onto the stick of Jake DeBrusk. Quinn made some great plays and flung that one puck at the net in the second period through traffic at the post, and then basically went down that road again and ended up scoring what turned out to be the game winner. So his fingerprints are just all over almost every game the Vancouver Canucks are involved in right now.
It's a big win. The Kings are having a nice start to the season. They tested themselves. It was a bit of a bend, don't break defense there towards the end of the third, but it was, it's good training ground for what they have to do. Now they come home for 6 games. Jeff, if they just have a good homestand, like 4-2 homestand, they'd be at 11-4-3 on the season. It'd be a pretty spectacular start, one that I don't think anybody would have penciled in without Thatcher Demko.
Right, and I think they're going to be measured against last year's team, and they already have been, right? Like, remember, through 4 games, they had the same point total as last year. And then we all said, yeah, but last year's team then went 8-0-1. Well, what they're doing here, like, the similarities aren't that far off. And if you remember, guys, late November last year, they had a stretch of 10 games where they alternated wins and losses, and we all thought, all right, the first 20 games were fun, but are they coming back down to earth here? And then they pulled out of that 10-game stretch, and I think they went like 18-2-4 or something. So, that's how you get to 50 wins and 109 points. And right now, with 2 regulation losses through a dozen games, they're back on the same sort of point trajectory that we saw from them last year. Quinn Hughes, after a bit of a sluggish start from him offensively, he's now on pace for 95 or 96 points. So he's on a pace that's going to outstrip his Norris Trophy performance, and he's doing so many other things well. And you're right, opportunity throughout this month of November. It's not just a 6-game homestand without really any kind of murderer's row coming in here. It's then they go back out on an Eastern road trip, and it starts in Ottawa. It goes to Boston, Pittsburgh, Buffalo. Like, find me the
juggernaut. No.
Yeah. And so that's the other thing. And this surprised me last night, guys, because 6 straight road wins for the Canucks. There have only been 3 instances in over half a century of hockey in this organization where they have won more consecutive road games. Like, and then you look at they don't play on the road for 2 weeks now, but like, they have a chance to bump up against franchise history if they can take care of business. And we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but I was just surprised. Well, six in a row on the road is great. But I was surprised that there are only 3 over the course of Canucks history that have been longer than the current win streak away from home.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure we're that far ahead of ourselves. One of those streaks was 2 years ago under Bruce, and the record setter was 2010-2011 when they were extraordinary, of course, and were using sleep science where the rest of the league wasn't. Garland, we asked yesterday, star player or role player? He goes out, he gets a goal, he dominates the analytics, and he plays a career-high 23 minutes, Jeff. A word or two on the Canucks mighty might right winger.
Yeah, well, Rick Tocchet clearly can't get enough of this guy right now, and it's hard to argue. And so we just keep throwing him over the boards. And, down a forward early in the hockey game, I think everybody was going to see a little bit more ice time along the way. So I think that maybe played into ultimately how Garland got to a career high in ice time, but it's warranted. And the goal gets a little help from Darcy Kemper, but he certainly is the guy that touched the puck. So it's Garland's goal. The problem there was they called it an own goal on the National Hockey League game sheet, like JT deserved an assist. It was a great pass, but Quinn also flung it over to JT. So Quinn Hughes essentially robbed of a second assist there. Just keep that in mind when you think of everything else that he did well on the road trip. But no, Connor Garland just looks like a guy that is playing with as much confidence as he has ever had in the National Hockey League. He looks like a guy, and maybe it's taken him longer than he thought, that is truly coming to his own. Like, we saw long stretches of this last year, but again, I think he has found a way to elevate and just bring a consistency. Like, there are no bad shifts, it seems, for Connor Garland. And when you see him hop over the boards, you know that he's going to come up with a puck. He's going to win his board battles. He's going to make things happen in the offensive zone. And I mean, he truly is. And Rick Tocchet's mentioned it a few times along the way here, but he is the driver on that line now. Like, it's Connor Garland's line, and Elias Pettersson is just playing on it, essentially, is the way things are working. Now, we can have a broader discussion about, is that really, the way you want it to shake down for a guy that's making close to $12 million? But I think it's undeniable. Anybody that's watched this team closely knows that it is Garland that's making things happen. And ultimately, we'll see if Elias Pettersson can read and react and find the right spots. And will the points eventually follow? We'll see. It hasn't really happened that way to this point, but Connor Garland.
What did you think? What did you think of him last night, Jeff Paterson? Yep.
Again, defensively, I thought he was stout, and head to head against Anze Kopitar, who was leading the Kings in points, and I didn't think Kopitar did an awful lot. But Pettersson's only shot came shorthanded off the rush with JT Miller in the first period. That was his only shot on goal. And again, like, you're being paid to do all those defensive things, and then it's plus, and we're not getting a single plus. Forget the plus right now with Elias Pettersson. So again, the bar's been lowered so far in this market. I think that's important. Defensive plays and wins are, it contributed to the victory. But when you see what other players in his pay grade are doing around the National Hockey League, they are doing a ton here. And so, I just thought there were way more important, way more effective storylines to follow last night, but we know that he's the flashpoint in this market. So defensively, no, lots of good things there. But is that enough for what they're paying him? And I would say no, that the defense stuff should just come in his sleep, and then he's got to find a way to contribute offensively as well.
Have we started to yawn at Kevin Lankinen performances? Is it just another day in Kevin Lankinen's universe?
That's the goalie that just provides victories at the back there. That's
right. Just provides victories, provides points every time.
That's all he does.
Yeah.
I mean, you almost do take him for granted. Kings were active on the power play. I think they had 9 shots on goal, and he had to make a couple of saves. There was a crazy scramble there in the second period when he was down and looking all around. And but his job is to keep the puck out of the net, and he did that. And look at the 2 goals that got by. I mean, Byfield, that's a terrific play from a good young player, and certainly not going to fault the goaltender there. And the Gavrikov one, shot from distance, but there was some traffic there, and maybe he wasn't expecting the shot to come as quickly as it did. But at the end of the night, I mean, this was 2 goaltenders that came into action last night. Him and Darcy Kemper, neither had lost in regulation. Well, only one guy can say that now, and that's the Canucks goalie. So, I'm just authoring an incredible story night after night after night. And the way the schedule goes here, there's just no reason to think that he's not going to get the starts. He will get the start Saturday. You'd think a couple of days between games after that he should be fresh and ready to go against Calgary. And we know what happened on opening night against the Flames. So I don't think there's any chance that Artie Silovs is getting another chance at the Calgary Flames. I'm going to be fascinated to see ultimately where this goes for Kevin Lankinen over the long haul. It's tied into Thatcher Demko and his return. It's on a 1-year contract right now, so he's not even eligible to sign an extension. I've had some people ask me, like, why don't they lock him up now? Per the terms of the CBA, that's just not something the Canucks can do at this stage. But it is crazy to think how late Kevin Lankinen remained on the open market this past summer, and there's just not a world in which that would happen again next offseason.
Nope. Lastly, first meeting with the Oilers tomorrow, Jeff. How much do you think the Canucks want this game a little bit of vengeance, and do you expect any bad blood?
Is this game 8? Are we calling this one? I hope not. I mean, look, you always want to win divisional games. They're ahead of the Oilers, and the best way to stay ahead of teams that are trying to track you down is to beat them in regulation time. Oilers are scuffling. They lost badly to New Jersey, got shut at home, lost to Vegas, gave up a third period lead and lost there. At the outset of the week, I didn't think McDavid was going to be playing, so that's a pretty good card that they now have back in their lineup, and probably had to knock a little rust off against Vegas, but a few more days of practice, I'm sure 97 will be up and running. But guys, is it 2006? Is it 2000? Well, it's not 2006 because the Oilers went to the final then, but is it 2009? Is it 2013, 19? After McDavid and Draisaitl, the next highest scoring forward on the Edmonton Oilers has 6 points. What are we doing here? Every summer they load up on these guys that are supposed to come in and answer this question about depth. And it was Arvidsson, it was Skinner this year, it was other guys that were going to take steps forward. Draisaitl's got his points. McDavid obviously missed some time as a point-a-game guy. He'll get going. Then you get
they don't even have Hyman this year.
Yeah,
Hyman and the Nuge 5 points apiece. Both of them scuffling. And the other thing that amazes me, this stopped me in my tracks. They're the worst penalty-killing team in the NHL. Under 60%. This is taking me back a few years to the Canucks. They've already given up 15 power play goals. Think how locked in the Edmonton Oilers were on the penalty kill in the playoffs, particularly against the Canucks. That was one of the storylines was this penalty kill is airtight. Nobody can puncture it. Well, what a difference a few months make, because we'll see. And again, the Canucks power play has shown some signs of life here, but maybe opportunity is knocking for a big night for the power play at home against the Edmonton Oilers. So, the rivalry is on. Vasily Podkolzin coming back to town here. We'll see where things go. But Saturday night, Oilers should have that big game feel, I would imagine.
It will. You'll be there covering it. Jeff, fantastic stuff. Have a great weekend. We'll be listening to RinkWide Vancouver. We'll catch up with you next week.
All right, guys. You have a great weekend as well.
It's happy hour on Sekeres and Price. Today's beer of the day from Yellow Dog, the High Five Hazy IPA.
There's some price from the historic Wall Center.
And it is time. It is finally Friday. Game 3. Caps are in California to take on LAFC with a chance to move on to the next round of the MLS Cup playoffs. Match is scheduled for 7:30 now. Beware, because it was originally 8. 7:30 on MLS Season Pass and Apple TV. You can listen on whitecapsfc.com or watch it amongst friends. You can head to the watch party. Goodco on Granville. It's way better to watch it amongst fellow fans, isn't it? So go check it out and get access to the watch party tickets by going to whitecapsfc.com.
And we welcome in from Vancouver Whitecaps FC down in Los Angeles. It is defender Sam Adekugbe, Canadian international as well. Sam, thanks for the time. How you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's the biggest match in Whitecaps history. How's the team feeling this morning?
Yeah, we're definitely excited. We know it's a huge chance to do something great for this club, and we're looking forward to the challenge.
What do you think LAFC learned about you guys in game number 2?
I think they learned to not take us lightly. Obviously, we had a good result and showed a strong performance, but we know they're top of the league, and we know that we have a lot of work to do heading into this game this evening.
Do you feel like you guys have changed much from structure and attacking tactics here in the playoffs versus what you had in the regular season? I mean, maybe it's just because everybody's healthy and everybody's available, but how much has changed?
I think a little bit. I think we've learned a little bit from the poor results that we had, but we also know that we're a team that thrives on confidence, and we have a lot of good players in this group. And we're seeing now players step up and take leadership roles and look out for the team, and you're seeing it in the last result we had on the weekend.
So how's the confidence now, Sam? And tell us about how you were able to beat them so soundly in Game 2.
Yeah, the confidence is definitely at a high right now. But we know it's one of 3 games, and tonight's the most important game. But we take a lot of confidence knowing that we lost to a narrow result over there in the first game, and we know that we could have won that game if we just fixed some things and made less mistakes. And I think in the next game we showed that a confident team that comes out early and strong has the quality to win the game resoundingly, and we did that. So we're looking forward to the third game, and we're hoping to just bring the best out of ourselves.
Tell us what it's like playing in that environment, and tell us about the differences of having to go play now on grass.
Yeah, it's definitely a hostile environment. It's a team that's obviously won before, so it comes with a lot of pressure to perform, and it's going to be a very interesting and entertaining game. And yeah, obviously it's a different pitch that we're playing on, but it makes no changes to the game. It's just something that we have to handle, and we've handled that all throughout the season at different away grounds.
I saw our old friend Kai Kamara said it does quicken their transition game on grass. So tell us about defending that.
Yeah, most definitely. I just think that's just because of the way the grass is. When it's wet, the ball moves faster. So it does quicken their transition game. But we have a strong team who's prepared for that, and we just something we have to embrace and be prepared for.
Sam, talk about your personal journey this year, because it was a struggle. It had some injuries, a little bit stop and starty. Did you get the chance? Did you get the feeling that you wouldn't get this chance based on injury? And how relieved are you that you're able to take part in all this and you're looking like your normal self again?
Yeah, it's definitely not been an easy season. I've obviously struggled with fitness issues. That's been no secret. And it's obviously something that's going to be a big part of my off season. But heading into this next game, I'm looking forward just to giving my all. I know it's difficult to get the best out of myself this year, just with the way the season has gone. But it's not about me; it's about the team. And a lot of guys have stepped up this year and stepped up to the plate and performed really well. And I'm just happy to obviously be able to be healthy and be back and be a part of it.
Do you feel 100%? Or do you feel like yourself?
I mean, it's difficult, right? Like, it's been a lot of games, a lot of time missed this year, so it's really impossible to kind of be where the other guys are at. But I don't make an excuse for it. It's just the reality of what's happened this season, and I look forward to the games.
Have you allowed yourself to think about what it would be like to come home to Vancouver here to your supporters with a victory over LAFC?
I mean, most definitely. I think before games or any games, you do have a bit of nerves and you do wonder what might happen after the game and what might be. But I think it's more important to focus on the game and hopefully head into another game against Cascadia rivals.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about your teammate Ryan Gauld and his level of play these days.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've seen in the playoffs is what we've seen from Ryan throughout the year. I've always said he's probably the best player that's ever come to the Vancouver Whitecaps, and I think that's been shown with how many times he's won player of the season, his all-star selection, his call-up back into the national team, and I think more importantly, he leads by his actions on the pitch more than his words, and I think that's more important than anything a captain can showcase.
How has Stuart Armstrong affected the club since coming over?
Yeah, Stuart's obviously a very good player with a lot of experience and a lot of individual quality, and I think he's more importantly brought that experience into a group that's probably a bit younger. I think it's shown when Stuart's been healthy. We're a much better team when he's playing, and it's not just what he does on the pitch, it's what he does off the pitch. He's able to kind of calm the group. He's able to lead from experience and obviously show players that what he's done and what needs to be done to get to the next level.
And I'm also interested in the move to the Christmas tree, the 4-3-2-1 formation. What has that done for you guys in terms of defending?
I don't know. I don't want to. I'm sure.
Tip the hand too much. It's more on you, though, isn't it? Like
it affects you. Yeah,
he relies on you to come back, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think throughout this whole season, we've shown tactical flexibility. That's something that Vanny prides himself on, and I think. Obviously, throughout every game, we've shown us something a little bit different, where it's playing with wingers on different sides or playing with a back four, with a back three, and it gives something for the opposition to think about. But, I mean, I think it's no secret that we've played well with this Christmas tree formation.
Would you, in your ideal world, I mean, maybe this is too obvious, but would you love to punch him in the face early here and get an early goal? Like, does that just change everything? Do you think Vanny's game planning for that, for you guys to get an early goal?
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, we score first, we score second, we score third. But yeah, we know that the first goal is the most important goals in these competitive games. It's a game of fine margins, and it's more so in the playoffs as well. So I think whoever scores first has the better advantage to win the game.
Well, it would be quite a Christmas present for Cap supporters if you could come home from LA with a victory and get on to Seattle for the next round with that Christmas tree formation. Sam, best of luck tonight. We look forward to the game, and we also look forward to seeing you in that Canadian kit soon, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
Happy hour on Sekeres and Price. Today's beer of the day, Yellow Dog Squirrel Chaser Hazy Pale Ale.
Sekeres and Price from the historic Wall Center. You can text us 778-402-9680. Email live at sekeresandprice.com. All of it to the Great Clips inbox. Great Clips.
It's going to be great.
This segment powered by Square. If you run a restaurant, you're probably too busy for this ad. You're thinking about how to get more orders flowing, new locations opened. need to get more customers, keep them coming back. So really, you're already thinking about Square, because Square Restaurant Tech helps more than 400,000 restaurants do all those things and more. So when you're thinking about your restaurant, think big. Think Square. Go to square.ca and see why Square is big in restaurants. So we heard from Sam Adekugbe there, and we talked about the first goal. Caps 13-2-3 when scoring first, 1-11-3 when giving up the first goal. There are no Canucks who have given up 6 straight opening goals and have won most of those games. A good piece from J.J. Adams today in the Vancouver Sun, talking about this Christmas tree formation that we also talked about with Adekugbe, the 4-3-2-1, and how that has hampered the LAFC transition game because it limits the space behind the wingbacks like Sam Adekugbe, and it forces them centrally into the middle of that Christmas tree. Think about trying to make your way through the middle of a Christmas tree, Blake.
Well, you need big athletes though to come back. That's the thing. So they have the athletes. Like Sam is such a great runner that he can come back and help. So they played it's a big change from the way they played basically the entire season with staunch three at the back, and not a 3-4-5 at the back. It was a staunch three at the back. And now to go to 4 at the back at the snap of a finger, come the playoffs, it takes some commitment by whoever you're tasking as being that fullback. And in this case, it's Sam Adekugbe. But they've got the athletes for it.
He was a little hesitant to get into the execution of it.
I did half wonder, Matt.
Vanny talks about it. It's like he tells you everything you need to know in his pressers. But
I speak not in the know here at all. I did half wonder, and they still might. He might have tipped his hand a little bit there, Sam, but I did wonder about a 5 at the back here. That, because they've got good athletes, they could go 3 at the back with 2 strong fullback wingbacks that can track back and become 5 at the back.
So that would be Sam on the left side and who on the right?
Well, you could go Laborda, who would be a little bit more stay at home. You could go Seb Berhalter, who would be a little bit more aggressive moving forward. And what that would do is you try to smash him in the face early by having those wingbacks play forward. Mm-hmm. But if you did get that goal, then you've got guys ready to retreat and park the bus a little bit. So
could be Ahmed too, I suppose.
Could be Ahmed. Ahmed's not noted for his defending, but
he loved. He talked this week about moving Ahmed more centrally in the midfield.
Right.
And the other thing, and look, it is a significant difference. Kai Kamara, the former Whitecap, who was talking about how that turf at BC Place really deadens the bounce on balls and makes it difficult for teams to play with pace in transition. That will not be the case on a grass field, particularly, as Sam mentioned, if it's a slicker grass field, like any moisture, any dew, anything like that, because then you're looking at those balls that sort of skip bounce along, Blake, and that can create some pace.
But they've actually played fairly well.
But they played better on the road. They played better on the road than they did at home this year. So it's not like turf was a be-all, end-all advantage for the Caps, and it's not like having to go out and play on different surfaces was their kryptonite.
But they also just don't – it's not like they don't have any good memories at LAFC Stadium, BMO. Like they've played pretty well down there. We watched from Kelowna that one day where they marched in and scored 3 goals relatively quickly at LAFC. They know they can do this. So it's just going to be really interesting to see which team shows up. And I think LAFC saw the health of this squad and got nervous at the start of this series.
Yep.
And they are probably pretty happy that it's not 2 games total goals right now.
Huge day tomorrow for Canadian football. We'll learn who are the participating clubs in the Grey Cup game here at BC Place a week from Sunday. The East Final goes from Montreal, where the Alouettes host the Argonauts and are just a 1.5-point favorite. People seem to like the Argonauts, think they're coming on strong here. Of course, Alouettes had the fantastic regular season, were able to kick back. We'll see if they can ratchet it up. There's a lot of people that believe, and Wally's lost a lot of these games where you've had the bye, that there is something to be said for momentum. There is something to be said for playing on that knife's edge of competitive games. The Alouettes haven't had that in a while. We'll see if they can get over and make it back to the Grey Cup game, of course, the defending champion. And Saskatchewan at Winnipeg in an All-Prairie West final. The Bombers are 4-point favorites here, according to Bet365, looking to make a 5th consecutive Grey Cup game. This is not something we have seen. You have to go all the way back to that dynastic Edmonton club of the late 70s, early 80s, where they won their 5 Grey Cups in a row. There's some guy named Warren Moon at the controls at quarterback, at least for the later part of that Edmonton run. The league announcing today that the 2026 Grey Cup game will go to Calgary and McMahon Stadium. And Blake, I've got a bee in my bonnet about this one.
Because you go to the oldest, ricketiest stadium in the league?
McMahon Stadium is the worst stadium in the league now, by far.
Worse than Montreal? Doesn't have the charm of Montreal?
Doesn't have the charm, but Montreal also put money into Percival Molson Stadium a few years ago. I mean, the Molson Stadium's older, yes. There's some things about Molson Stadium that aren't ideal. But, of course, when Grey Cups go to Montreal, they go to the Olympic Stadium. Yeah. You put 60,000 people in there, which is not the case with McMahon. Covered the last one there in 2019, and frankly, the stadium does for me, it no longer holds up to the event. Now, you can put an okay crowd in there, 35,000 with the expanded seating. The place is an absolute disaster in terms of being able to accommodate everything that a Grey Cup that is different between a Grey Cup game and a regular season or even playoff Canadian Football League game. But I also hate the fact that we're rewarding the ownership here with this Grey Cup that have put all their eggs into building a new palace for the Flames and haven't done much for the football team. And, the stadium is not central in Calgary. It takes a while to get out there if you're staying downtown. I can remember being there way back in the day, Blake, for the 13th man game in 2009 when the Alouettes beat the Riders, and there was a snowstorm that effectively paralyzed traffic to and from the stadium. If you get that on game day, you got a lot of disappointed people holding really expensive tickets. So I was surprised to see this. Frankly, I was a little disappointed to see this. I thought the game would have graduated out of McMahon Stadium, and if you did wanted to give it to Calgary, well, why not insist on something by way of stadium upgrade there at McMahon? And let me say this. I have deep affection for McMahon Stadium. My family lived in Calgary for 3 years as a kid. My dad's company had season tickets to the Stamps. We went to all the games. I have fantastic memories and feel fondly about that venue and what I've seen in there over the years and the games it's hosted over the 13th man. There are very few Grey Cup games that are more famous than that one. But, it is time. Like, all that money in Calgary. Come on, guys.
Well, the fact
Get
that
yourself a better
Winnipeg
stadium.
was able to build a new stadium, that Regina was able to build a new stadium.
Like Hamilton. Ottawa put big money into renovating theirs. Montreal
effectively
put money
built
into
a new one. Why Calgary can't? And here's the thing: there's lots up for grabs here. Like, Commonwealth is in a pretty decent state of disrepair too. They've fixed it up here and there, but it's not a great stadium. It's so vast. It's not a great stadium for the viewer.
But what I'll say about Commonwealth, the concourses are massive, and so is the stadium. You put 60,000 people in.
No, but my bigger point is, you can be the better stadium if you build a new one in Calgary. You can be the apple of the eye in Alberta, to which, if there was any big events, Canadian soccer, Canadian rugby, all that sort of stuff,
right.
you'd host it.
You're not even considered for those sorts of events.
No.
All that money in Calgary. And we've said it for years. Bad rink, bad stadium, and you don't even have like an appropriate golf course that could host a Canadian Open.
Yeah, it's true. All that money.
All those oil guys sitting on their money.
And no venues. No venues.
Like, do something for your city. It's a fantastic place, but my God, the venues there are Mickey Mouse.
The best venue in the joint up until the new Flame, it might have been the Winsport Arena, the fabulous, Olympic.
Well, that's the other
venue.
thing. You got an Olympic legacy there.
Yeah.
Of course, the old joke: how many people does it take to change a light bulb in Calgary? The answer: 100. 1 to change the bulb, 99 to sit around talking about how great the '88 Olympics were, despite no Canadian gold medals. But hey, Boeser and Manly, boy, were they great. Okay.
I go-karted down the Olympic Hill.
And Eddie the Eagle didn't kill himself, the ski flopper.
Last year, I go-karted.
Dropper.
They've got this go-kart thing. You can go-kart down the bobsled hill, not on the track, but on the hill. It's kind of scary.
Yeah. Superb Thursday night football game. I know a lot of people might have just gone over the Canucks game or just started up with the Canucks game at 7:30, but wow, what a finish with Baltimore and Cincinnati. I mean, one of the better primetime and Thursday night games we have seen in a long while. Cincinnati goes for 2 for the victory, doesn't get it, loses 35-34. And you know what? Bravo, Al Michaels, because there are 2 missed penalties on that 2-point convert. And there were a number of calls throughout the game, either missed or poor, that I think you could argue affected the outcome. Al Michaels says at the end that, here's the problem. This game ends with fans looking at it going, that's a roughing the passer and that's a holding, defensive holding or defensive pass interference. And he's right. And I also like the fact that Al Michaels is out of fucks to give. At 80-some years old, and I do believe this will be his last year calling NFL games, he has been critical of the product. Good on him. He's been there 40-plus years calling NFL games and primetime games. Some of the biggest regular season games going have had Al Michaels' voice doing the play-by-play. So, he's earned it. He's put in his time. He's seen good football. He's seen bad football. He's seen good matchups worthy of a primetime single billing. He has seen poor ones. He's called a bunch of those, sadly, with Kirk Herbstreit over the last couple of years on Prime. He has a voice that should be heard on this one.
Bob Costas has recently said he's basically done too, by the way. So
He
two of the veterans
quit.
are...
No more baseball
But
play-by-play.
I think we're getting a light shot on it. We've talked about this just a few days, maybe have been earlier this week, I think, about game-tying touchdowns in the final minute or at the death, and whether or not to go for 2 to win or accept your fate with the coin toss. And here's one thing we didn't bring up in that whole debate is you put an awful lot of faith in the officials to call that one singular play
for sure
to the letter. Because if you're the defending team, are you not tempted to cheat a little bit? Because what's the ramifications for you if you cheat and
the ball gets moved inches forward and we're
inches forward?
replaying
You do it again. There's
try.
there's nothing to dissuade the defending player from being a dick on the play. So
and Blake,
why not?
Particularly when you're defending at home, right?
Yes.
Now you're forcing the officials to make a call,
An unpopular call,
and having 60,000+ people boo them.
I wonder if that's a calculus that coaches have put in, because we just saw it play out in real time.
I think one of the calculuses you make when you're in that spot is who's the other team's offense, and if I have to kick to them in overtime, what are my chances of seeing the ball? And in a game that could be 35-35, and the way that Lamar and the Ravens offense, I think it was the correct call by Taylor and the Bengals. Go for the sudden victory right there. You probably won't have a better opportunity. Needless to say, Jamar Chase with a game for the ages. My God, was he good last night. Which brings us to this from Octastats. There have been 2 instances in NFL history where a quarterback has had 30-plus completions, 300-plus yards passing, 4+ touchdown passes, and multiple 40-yard touchdown passes with no more than 1 interception. Only twice has that quarterback lost. Joe Burrow last night and Joe Burrow versus the Ravens in Week 5, if you can believe that. Flip side here, you do wonder whether Baltimore can win a Super Bowl with that kind of pass defense. Love Hamilton, the safety. Humphrey, the corner, has been very good. But the way they defend the pass, I'm not sure you're getting through Kansas City playing that way.
Here's my idea. Before the game begins, each team makes a play from scrimmage from the 2-yard line, to be an at-the-death insertion 2-point convert. But you play it outside of the vacuum.
What?
It's a 0-0 game.
What are you talking
no
about?
stakes on it there. But if you
Nonsense.
make it, you get to insert that at the death in the final minute.
Nonsense. No. I hate it. I hate
Takes
it.
away the gravitas for the officials?
No. You want the drama at the end. Come on.
If it's played properly, yes.
Hate that. Surrey Mitsubishi poll question results from Thursday. What is Connor Garland to the Canucks? Star player, role player? What did the people say?
It's a great question. They usually like to cheer their player, so I'll say star player.
No, you got it wrong.
Really?
Role player.
Really?
You're a bad run here, 2 in a row. 62% said role player. Ron, he's a role player, but at this point, he's a very good role player. David says unsung hero. Don't get me started, David, on the unsung hero category with the Canucks Team Awards. It is out of date.
Yes.
Everybody in this market is sung if they do something well. Chayton, good to hear from Chayton. Long time no talk. Big San Francisco Giants fan. Has the bar fallen so low for what a star player is considered in the league? Good player last season and a half, but he couldn't even be traded for future considerations last year. There's more stars than superstars, but come on. Garland is nowhere near star level. And then John. You guys have really good poll questions usually. This one is kind of stupid, though. He's been incredible. I'm not going to argue that. But star player? No shot.
Well, here's the thing with that poll question. Then you vote role player.
Yes.
There's a vote there for you.
It's okay.
But also, he is basically a point-per-game player this season. Point-per-game players in this league are star players. So,
need a bigger sample size.
Yeah, well,
but
that's
yes,
the
of
reason
course.
to vote role player. But
Right.
that's the reason why you'd be tempted to say star player is point-per-game players or star players.
Right. Arizona omissions from yesterday's program. Frank Corrado wondered how many games he played for the Vancouver Canucks. It was 32, including postseason.
Kind of inflated his stats there, didn't he?
Yeah. I thought, 40, 50? How many did I play for the
Yeah.
Canucks? It was only 32, Frank. And then we'll give Rob Williams some leash because apparently it was a very busy day at the Daily Hive offices yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
He was scrambling for a quiet place to do the hit, and he found a room with a grotesque black pipe running through it. And Blake says to him, nah, it's okay, just leave the pipe.
Well, no, the option was he gave us two looks. One was a stark whiteness, nothing breaking up the white. And I said, no, give me the black pipe. At least it breaks up the white.
No. It looked like he had like a pipeline running through his headquarters.
It's edgy industry
It
look.
wasn't edgy. It wasn't it wasn't none of those things.
It was architectural. I liked it.
I got outvoted on it. I'm here to litigate it a day later. That's
sounds
how we
like it.
roll. That's how we roll. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with us. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, including YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social. That's X, YouTube, Insta, Facebook, TikTok. And, of course, support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local. Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.